So it's Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 217 for our Thursday, August 29th, 2024. I'm experimenting again with the zoom views and the recordings. If you look at the recordings, you'll see I've been using this multi-view a lot. Right now I see myself, I figured out how to turn myself on and off, I didn't know that. And Bowman, since he talks a lot, and then 34 other people on the lower part of the screen. So it's really an interesting view. It lets you really get a good view of the meeting and what's going on. Lancaster Club meeting next Tuesday, the 2nd of September, I believe it is. Will feature Angelo, and I'm not sure what he's going to demonstrate, but anytime Angelo agrees to demonstrate, it's well worth being there. He's very soft-spoken, but it comes through in the video. But in person, it's even more fun. All the more reason to join the Lancaster Club as we come up to fall and dew season. Sorry to mention that. And then open shop will be the following Saturday, I believe, and I believe it'll be an interesting open shop. While I'm talking, I'm going to show you what I've been doing this week. I went to visit David Sloan and came back with 6-7 pieces of cherry wood, and this is the first one I hacked out of it. I'm fairly pleased with it. I took the Raffin point of view rather than the Ellsworth point of view and got it as good as I could, and then I went in there with a large rounded scraper and held it on the outside with a paper towel so I didn't fry my hand, and kind of got most of the bad gouges out of it. So it's fairly uniform. I'm happy with that. I don't do a lot of this kind of turning, and I don't know if it'll stay. It probably won't stay flat. We'll see what happens when it finishes drying. It's very, very wet. So I'm back to that, as well as making little boxes with lots of magnets. So I hope you guys are up to some interesting stuff. Who wants to show and tell some stuff today? No hands up. What are we going to do?
Hey John, I talk too much, I know, but I turned a big old cherry burl, which is behind me, with the help of Doug. He came down and with a crotch burl. You know what I mean? It had his crotch and the burl grew over the... so we cut it in half and chucked it up on the lathe, and I wanted to core it out because the burl was on the outer edge. And got a couple corings, but we had to go through a bunch of shenanigans to keep it on the lathe. It kept wanting to pop off.
Well, okay, so how did you, first of all, what plane did you cut it in? Down so in between the two branches, or parallel to the Y-ness of the crotch wood?
Well, funny you should ask that. I have a picture of that.
I thought you might. And this wasn't rehearsed, kids. This just showed up.
Hang on a sec. I have a picture of Doug mulling it over. We gave a good consideration to it, and let me share this.
I would like to discuss that a little bit, because I'm back to figuring out, okay, just how do I wrestle with green, fresh-cut wood with my limited tools, and I'm really reluctant to get in there with a big chainsaw anymore. So I've been using a power plane to make a flat on one side. If I get a flat on it, then I can steer it through the bandsaw. So that's my go-to move, is to get it on the bandsaw table as soon as I can.
Well, hang on a sec. I'm having a challenge with share button today.
Okay, well, you fool around with that. Let's see what anybody else might have to say about that. I mean, I know a lot of you guys know an awful lot about what I'm asking about. Mike Peace, what do you do? You're muted.
You're muted again, Mike.
Here he comes.
Okay. I'm looking for ornaments videos for this fall, and I found this thing on, I can't see myself on the screen.
No, I was asking you about mill and crotch pieces and green wood first. We'll come to looking at your work in a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of them. In fact, the only crotch pieces I do are natural edge winged bowls, where I, cut the crotch
down the middle. So you're dividing it so that the full wideness in the widest plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you going to get 2 pieces out of that, or the best one only, and discard the one that is not so good?
It depends on the crotch. If I can get 2 of them, maybe, but seems like all the pieces I've done, I generally only did 1, so I guess there wasn't enough there to make 2.
Yeah. Anybody?
John, I found it. I want to show you this because
Got it. Okay.
you see, Doug and I were squatting and looking at this thing. It was a crotch to start with, so the pith kind of dissected. And
Which end are we looking at here? This is the small end then.
right. Let me see. Probably.
See if you can make it full screen.
That's the large end, John.
Okay.
The crotch is on the other. There you go.
Okay.
See the crotch there?
Yes.
But the problem is that the burl was right in the crotch.
Yeah.
So that was the real story. I haven't ever run into a burl like that where it's right in the middle of the crotch. So you got to sort of decide whether you want some crotch wood or some how it's going to cut out. And I wasn't certain how deep the burl actually went.
And I think we did this too. We aimed for the crotch. And I think, Doug, I didn't turn the other side. I think the other side's going to be almost entirely burl as far as texture and grain. The one I turned out is, it looks like that. It's on the lathe yet.
Well, just a second now.
It's down to where the crotch pieces came up through.
Okay.
And so the other half, I think, is going to have a lot of burl on, but it's still laying on the bench in the shop. So.
Well, David Sloan's just popped up on screen because it was at David's house that I got the wood for this, and it's the piece of crotch wood that I brought back to my shop that I initiated this discussion on, exactly which plane to cut that through and what are the good ways of doing it. Because the way I do it is, I think not the regulation way. I think other.
John, the way you described it is what I would normally think of doing it as well. If I'm going through a pure crotch, I'm going to try and catch the crotch on the Y. The problem I have is what you do with the crotch and the burl together.
We'll come back to just the straight fork in the tree part where we know there's all that reaction wood in there. Do you try and get one wonderful piece out of it, or you try to split it so you get two out of it? And then once you've got them, which way around do you turn them? Which way? How do you think about that?
I try to do two things actually. If the piece is thick enough, I try to get one platter off the Y and the crotch, and then get a bowl off the outside of it. So I actually get two pieces. And so you might get a shallow bowl, but I try to keep at least one platter with the crotch in it because that really gives me a beautiful platter.
So you
cut into that at all.
So you cut. So in other words, you don't split that dead center. You split it off center, so you get all of the reaction wood in one side. Is that right?
Well, you try and get cut it in dead center, so you're cutting through the pith.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't get the pith in either of your pieces.
Okay. So that's the goal.
So first of all, get rid of the pith, and then the second is take maybe a 2-inch slab off the outside, 1.5 2-inch slab off the pith side. And that way it'll get on either side, and that gives you a beautiful platter. You can even get some almost book mold platters if you want to, and then if it's thick enough, then you go through there after that. But yeah, that's what.
And you're going to do that with a chainsaw, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here is this is what Doug's talking about.
Yeah.
Aren't you, Doug?
Yeah.
Now, when we cut it, we were a little more off center. I think we were favoring the crotch side.
And the burl side too.
I think the other side's going to be nice burl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might even be a shallow bowl. I'm anxious to cut it, but I've been busy all week with something else. But yeah, so, and the other thing I noticed, we managed to keep the bark on it all the way around. I dressed it up with PC petrifier just to make sure after I had the bowl turned. So, yeah, well.
All right, well, nice work. Okay. Any other comments on this whole problem or this whole question of working with crotch wood and burl wood like that, and how you cut it?
Hey John, it's gonna rock as that one dries. Cherry does that, I think.
Yeah.
I thought I had a flat bottom on this, but as it's drying, it's starting to get a little rock on it. I'll have to put it back in the disc sander, and just flatten it a little bit.
Yeah, I might figure a way to get it on the lathe just enough, just enough to work on the foot only.
Yeah, that was the fun part with this natural edge bark was, fortunately I had one of Runt Brown's adaptations for turning that way, and it worked great.
Well, one of the things I want to do next anyway is, in making bowls like this, is I know this is going to warp on the bottom. I'm going to disc sand it off on an angle so the bowl doesn't sit flat, it sits tilted a little bit. I want to experiment with that, and I think this is a good bunch of wood to do it with. Have you gotten anywhere, David, with the rest of the wood? Have you gone back out to the tree?
Actually, today it's on my plate today.
Are you going to go back out and work on it some more?
I may take. I'm going to cut a chunk out of there and probably do what Doug just suggested to do, is to get a platter out of 1/2 for a very shallow bowl.
Yeah, we left a very large crotch there that back. You have to bushwhack pretty far back to get at it.
Yeah, there's a lot more back there. I think that thing is probably almost 1.5 feet in diameter. At the base.
I agree. Yeah, at the bowl it's about 18, 19 inches. Yeah, nice big, and it's slow growing too. It's really nice wood. It's the grain structure is strong. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to the hands up, and I see Bruce. I haven't heard from Bruce in quite a while, so Bruce, I'm going to call on you.
Oh, thank you. I was hoping I'd catch Duxbury here because I made one of his bowls that he's published lately in Woodturning. He published the Eclipse bowl, and I took a shot at it. So let's see if I can share some pictures.
Duxbury's in Texas.
Oh,
SWAT?
is it SWAT? Yeah.
You got a picture of my clamps?
We see a lot of clamps there, yeah.
So in order to make this bowl, the real trick is having a wide enough blanks to use. I didn't really want to do glue-ups because you're going to see the joint, I think, pretty obviously. So finding something 8-9 inches wide kind of limits what I had in the shop. But anyway, that's a piece of Peruvian walnut on top, and the bottom is cherry. And they've been run through the drum sander in a nice joint, and way too many clamps, but you know, you got them, you might as well use them, right? So then I learned that when it comes to resawing something 9 inches thick, I'm not really good at that. But you know, I'm learning. I never had to do that before. But you can see the band saws in the far left here, and I'm going to saw on these lines. The first one here, and then I'm going to flip the board around and do the other line so that you reorient the direction of this wood. And then he very nicely drew out a form to, and he suggests using the lighter colored wood to draw your blank out on it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I didn't really understand the 4 holes that you drilled here, 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 and here. I thought that was going to be where we anchor this board, but it's not. It's really a positioner to show you where you're going to put the handles of this board. I should have shown you the final picture first, I guess. You know.
Yeah, we have no idea where you're going with this, you know.
Yeah,
Which is my big complaint with slideshows and magazine articles and everything. Show us where you're going first, so we can comprehend what's up here.
We'll see it pretty soon.
Okay.
Basically, making a bowl or a tray in this case, it's very. We only got about 1 inch of wood here, which is going to make for some interesting techniques, which he worked out. And then the board is just going to be screwed to a board. That's what the holes in the corner are for. And everything over from the handles is all going to be chopped away in the end. So here it is on the lathe for the first time. Again, the 4 holes are really just holes, and the ones in the corners are what's holding it to this faceplate mounted disc. And your other limitation in size is your swing of your lathe, how big you can really do this. My lathe has a 20-inch swing, and I'm making a 9-inch bowl. I could probably go to at least 12 inches in the bowl, but you're going to wind up with more.
Well, that big plywood disc is a safety essential in doing this kind of work. You just can't. It's other ways I've seen of doing it with offset chucks and all of that. You really have to have that plywood disc.
Well, remember also, as I said, the blank here is only about 1 inch thick.
Yeah.
And so you don't want any flex on it either. And but you're right. It's a nice, safe way to do it. You just go in first with a parting tool and kind of outline where the handles are going to be, and put a recess in there for the chuck that's going to turn this on the other side. Yeah, I really wish Dux was here to elaborate, because he worked all this out, and his pictures in Woodturning magazine were really terrific, because I didn't have any trouble following what to do. So after you do that, you're going to cut away the pieces and remount this onto a chuck and turn the bottom of the bowl, which now you start to get a feel for while you reset with the bandsaw and the different woods. So now I've got the back of the bowl essentially done, except I'm going to have to eventually cut away the rest of the handles here on a bandsaw. So now we flip it around and put it back on the board and start hollowing out the bowl. And then you again screw the bowl to the back in areas that you're going to cut away. And the only trick there is to make sure you set your screws deep enough that you don't hit them with your chisels. And no, I didn't learn that one the hard way. But you can see I came pretty close here, because these are the screws that are holding it on when you're finishing the back. But as you go through to the depth, that's the beauty of this eclipse bowl, is trying to get enough of the two woods through in the one piece.
So you're trying, would you be like shooting that, divide it right on a diameter? Was that what you were aiming for? Or are you, this is what you wanted, the wandering line?
I wanted to wonder, I think that's why he called, you have to ask him why he called it the eclipse bowl, but I think that was the intent, that it kind of looks like a partial here, and you get the wandering line. That was what it wasn't supposed to be a straight line.
Okay.
Okay. So then once you take this to the bandsaw, you can cut away the rest of the handles, and then you have a lot of sanding to do. I have a spindle sander, which makes pretty quick work of this, but otherwise, Duxbury's bowl has a much more elaborate end on the handles here, which I found to be very fragile and not probably something you'd want to use as a bowl, but they do look pretty impressive the way he's done it. But otherwise, this is pretty true to his design. And then this is just with some walnut oil on. You can see how quickly that comes out.
Boy, that sharpened it up pretty good.
Doesn't it? And you get a feeling for the multiple woods in a nice way here.
Okay, well keep that slide on, because this is a problem. No, go back a second, if you would. This is the next one, forward, with the finish on it. Yeah, this is where I am with my turning skills. I get, you see that arc there about halfway across the walnut of where something bruised the wood down there below where you're going to turn it.
In here?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
Yes. And I thought that was a sanding line at first, but if you look at the grain, I mean, there might be a little tear out in it, but I tried to get rid of that, but it just wasn't going anywhere. It happens sometimes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what I find myself going in there with scrapers and both double bevel scrapers, whatever they call those, and regular single bevel scrapers, trying to carefully ground that allow me to try and level the surface down to the bottom of that bruised tissue. If you read Darlow, his argument is that that's the result of the slight little bobble in the tool bruises the wood tissue down a lot further than you realize. And
I think that's true, because I sanded this with a oscillating sander. So I wasn't putting in those kinds of marks with the sander.
Right,
probably
right.
was from school before. You're probably exactly right.
Yeah. Well,
when you say oscillating sander, Bruce, do you mean like a disc sander you put on a drill, or oscillating like a vibrating one under pressure, like you use it with air pressure?
I use an air-driven oscillating sander.
Because for that, how big is the diameter on this one?
That's the bowl section of this is 8 inches. With the handles, it makes it closer to 10 plus at the ends. So little 2-inch disc is not a problem to get in there.
One of the things I do is use is a 3-inch disc or something like that, or even a 5-inch disc, because the 5-inch disc gives you a very flat across the width diameter sand as opposed to the oscillator, and now you're rotating it literally around and going across that line. And I find that at the very, I know you're not supposed to use 80 grit sandpaper, but this is one of those cases where 80 grit sandpaper initially, after you finish your initial scrape, just takes that down to a really smooth finish on that side, so because you're not dealing with the slight movement of tools in and out and scrapers in and out. And I've fought with scrapers for years, but I found that is one case where high grit sandpaper really smooths that curve down very quickly.
I hear you, and I'm not shy about using 80 grit if I need it.
I'm struggling to figure out how to do it with scrapers. I really don't. I agree with you. The 80 grit is the only way I know to get rid of that stuff. I think it's possible to turn so it doesn't occur in the first place. I think that's Darlow's argument, and I think he's right.
Well, I agree with you, John, that it can be done with an 80-inch scraper. But my biggest question is, if it takes 20 years for me to learn how to use a scraper to do that, I don't have time left in my life to learn that. And the guys
what else you got to do?
Level of scraping.
What else you got to do with your time?
No, I'm just saying I'm going to be 90 by that point in time. It's like I want to do other things at the same time. But you know, getting that smooth cut and getting that what you're talking about boils down to how you hold your body and getting into the whole way you hold your tool and running it across that surface smoothly. Because as soon as you have to go from the center to the edge with one smooth cut across the scraper, which is possible, no question about it. But it just takes a hell of a lot of practice to get down to the level you're talking about, because it's down to microscopic changes. Just any time.
One thing to remember too is that
picture that doesn't show it. I thought this picture you really can't see it at all.
Yeah, it's all gone completely. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pick on your bowl. It just looked like an opportunity to talk about that, because that's what I'm wrestling with now too, is how to deal with that.
It's a good discussion. I'm not taking it personally.
Good.
One thing to remember too is we went to a workshop with Mike Hoslock, and the topic came up too. And I remember the comment being made that sandpaper is an engineered product, just like a cutting tool is. It's just a little harder to sharpen. And so him and Stu were talking about trying to fix this kind of exact problem, and they ended up going down to 36 grit. And so that's the laughing joke now. Whenever we talk to Mike Hoslock, we ask him if he's still got a roll of 36 grit.
Yeah, I know that Mahoney talks about 8 grit sometimes in a joking way too, 12 grit.
Hey, I have a question.
I thought with the sanding is making sure the sander doesn't mess up the rim and the edges. And once you get the sander touching the rim, then you get a line on the other end. So
there you go.
I have a question about that bruised wood. Is that formed by a gouged pebble? If you used a scraper, would you ever get that? I have.
No, you will. You'll get it anyway.
With a scraper?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
You're not pushing on it with anything other than the edge.
All it has to do is flutter.
Okay.
And you hear it. You hear it every time. When it's making that cut that bruises the wood down, you can hear that cut when it's happening, and it's like because it. Yeah,
I don't often make a flat bottom bowl, and so I probably did use the negative rake scraper on the bottom to try and make this thing really flat. Which I find a little tough with a gouge, but it's kind of unusual for me to make a flat bottom, and I usually try and instruct students we never want to make a flat bottom. So I think maybe I probably made it occur with a scraper if I had to guess.
I don't think so.
Anyway.
Okay. Anybody else on this?
Yes, I've got a question for you. Whenever I do two dissimilar woods, one a light, one a dark, I get dust from one into the other, and there.
You just went mute, Ken.
Did I mute him? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you muted me.
I apologize.
I understand. I see where I am in pecking order. Did you hear my question at all?
Start over.
Moving of the dark particles into the lighter wood. You know, I think it depends on the two woods, I suppose. I haven't done a lot of segmenting lately, but early on I did a lot of walnut or mesquite and maple segmenting, and I never really had that problem with hard maple. And I certainly don't see it in this one at all with the cherry. So I'm not sure why you get that into the open grain of another wood like that, but I've seen it happen, but I've not really had that problem.
John,
Yeah.
Kelsey, hey, I'm back to this. What causes, you use the term bruise, would suggest there would be pressure on that, but you say that's really tear out, not bruising, it's tear out.
I think it's both. There's in one of Darlow's books. There's a very careful series of pictures of sawing into that exact situation that Bruce has there, and then I have everything I turn, where he saws into it and then takes an enlarged photograph just to try and find out how deep that tissue damage goes. And it's a
My favorite example of that, John, is when you cut something off the lathe and you have that center mark there, and then you try and sand it back out, and it's amazing how deep you can go and still see that damage below the surface. So
yes.
Clearly that occurs.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the photos in Darlow's books and bring them up another time. We can take it, and maybe we'll get him on. At least 13 hours away. It's kind of hard. Yeah.
What's the shape on his gouge?
Bruce, what's your?
My gouge?
Yeah.
I use kind of an Ellsworth shape or a swept back gouge. But as I said, that's a very flat bottom bowl, and I definitely used a negative rake scraper on it.
You don't go in with a bottoming tool on that.
I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of the bruising that I see is because the shape is too long. You have to come back and put a micro cut from the backside to reduce the bevel a little bit, or reduce the bevel area. And what happens when you swing on a round bowl, the bottom hits and bruises the bowl itself.
You're thinking it's the heel of the gouge is what's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've experienced that as well, and I grind the heels off gouges for that reason.
Exactly.
Just one last question. What's the diameter of the scraper that you're using? Of the nose? I'm assuming it's a diameter's 1 inch or 2, 1.5. What's his?
It's a great question. I couldn't tell you which one I used. I have a series of them. I'm not sure which one.
To me, the larger diameter scraper, the larger the diameter of the scraper, the less of chance of having the point go in. You know, so I always use my 1.5 inch scraper if I can for something along that line, just because it gives me a much smoother cut along that bottom edge for the final finish.
And I have scrapers matching 1.25 inch scrapers. Or inch scrapers with square corners and with slightly rounded corners, so the corner doesn't dig in. And sometimes you want one, sometimes you want the other.
I also sharpen my scrapers a little different than most. I sharpen them at a 60-degree angle, and then with a 15-degree relief on the top for the negative rake. So they cut more than they scrape to some extent. But I have 1 inch, which are round nosed, and then I have more bowl oriented, heavy, and I just don't know which one I used on this particular piece.
Well, the experiments I'm running now on this very problem, I'm taking a wide skew with this a regular skew chisel and going in dead horizontal with that. And that makes that's a scraping cut, but it's with a very not the standard scraper edge, because that skew is ground to about 30 degrees. And I find that gives you a really good surface. So I'm grinding the corners off of one of those just to get one I can try and use and get it's just, yeah. And I don't know quite why that works in the cutting dynamics, when that pointy an edge going flat across the surface seems to plane it very nicely. And I can't quite see, there's no burr. I know how is the cut occurring even? I'm not even sure.
John, you don't do any shear scraping, you just do scrapings straight?
You mean with a gouge tipped way up?
Yeah, with the gouge tip.
You can't get in
Not
there.
the gouge tip.
In the little
Not
things.
with the gouge tip, with the scraper.
With the little things I'm working on, it's often pretty hard to get. All you can do is go in straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would choose a skew versus a negative rate scraper, John.
I don't understand that either. Mike's holding
Oh.
something up here. What are you holding up there, Mike?
Well, this is Richard Raffin's shear scraper that he taught Thomas Law to use, and I've been using this a lot. And it's a single bevel, but it's very slightly curved.
How do you use that? Flat or on some angle?
Both ways. Sometimes I use it flat, with the handle slightly up. Other times I'm bringing it up at like a 45-degree angle, or maybe even steeper. And then it's got a rounded edge, so it'll slide across the tool rest smoothly. And then they put a little notch here in the corner, so when you're doing the bottom, got an example, I've got a bowl here. When you're doing a bowl or a platter and you're coming across, you can actually lean this up and get that little notch in the corner where you otherwise couldn't cut, because it's rounded, and you get that nice, simple, easy to make profile on the bottom if you work.
Huh. Now, what's the bevel angle on that?
Probably close to 40 degrees, I think.
Yeah, it looks longer than 45. Yeah, heading 40 or even 35. That's very interesting.
You sharpen that notch, Mike?
Yes, you just one of my CBN wheels is square cornered, and you just come right into that corner.
Yeah.
And I just found that to me was the most interesting thing about this scraper. Otherwise, just another scraper. That their ability to quickly make a detail on the bottom. They're not as fussy as I am. Sometimes I'd make multiple beads and I'd do texturing, but they would just come in with that little corner.
Yeah.
And Tomislav has actually turned this, with Richard's permission, into a signature tool that's going to be marketed by Crown. They're still working on some final marketing things, but it'll be out soon. This is just a bar of high-speed steel, 6mm by 25mm.
That's I following Mike's lead. I bought a bunch of sizes of high-speed steel off Amazon, and most of them are pretty good. So I can make those kind of tools anytime, and you get like $10 gets you 3 pieces. I mean, and you can sharpen both ends. Make handles. Handles are fun.
The notch is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try that.
You got to watch some of their videos. Watch just about any one of their larger, bold videos, and you'll see either Tomislav or Richard using that tool to make that little profile on the bottom. And that's one of the big takeaways I've really gotten from watching both of them over the past year and a half, that now I've implemented into my regular wood turning.
So you guys are still doing the Four Ways project with a new project every month.
First of the month, 4 o'clock Eastern time.
Are you running out of project ideas?
No, we take turns, and somebody's always coming up with something different.
Okay. Were you going to show us something else since you're on screen with the spotlight on you?
Yeah, here's a recent box I made out of holly. It's somewhat of a copy of one I made earlier, where I did this pyrography that they call Zentangle, and it had a little bark inclusion right here, so I tried to figure out how to turn that into a feature. So I made that somewhat of a tree trunk, I guess.
And what's the handle wood?
Cocobolo.
And what's the wood, the box wood? Holly?
Holly. Yeah.
Nice contrast.
Yeah. And then that other bowl I was just showing you the bottom, this is a 9.5-inch ash bowl. It's got a couple of beads and a little scallop.
How did you make those beads?
I marked it with a point tool or pyramid tool, and then I came in with a spindle gouge and shaped the profile. And then I used a round nose. I cut this out with a spindle gouge, and then came back with maybe a 1/2 inch round nose scraper to kind of smooth out this profile on the band. cove here.
Nice piece. What's the wood?
Ash.
Ash.
And this is as big as a bowl as generally I ever want to turn. This is 9.5 inches. So, you know, I get folks in here for lessons sometime, and they're looking to get a lathe, and a lot of times they're looking at big bowls, and I tell them, you know, go to somebody else's shop, get it out of your system, turn a big bowl, because nobody needs a bowl much bigger than 9.5 inches. And when you get older, it's just harder to harvest the wood and manipulate it. And what if you got a great big bowl that is really not functional for much of anything? My thoughts, anyway.
Well, and if you don't do those, then you don't drop that big piece of wood on your arthritic knuckles on the latheways, too.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of which, Nova just came out with a new lathe, which has some nice feature. It's a MIDI, 15-inch MIDI, which has a headstock that will slide now down the ways. And I thought, now that's a cool one.
Yeah, Rikon has that too. Yeah. We had some other guys who had their hands up here then, and since it's Chalikian, and there was David Hudgel had his hand up. I hope he didn't go away. I see him down there. I'm going to talk to, well, you got it in your hand there, David, and then we'll go to Chalikian after you.
Enjoyed this sophisticated discussion. Last week I showed you a spalted maple bowl that my student did. Well, this is one off the same log that I did, and I've wanted to do this for some time. Put a epoxy resin center in the bottom. That's actually one of my coasters that I do with epoxy resin, and put alcohol ink in it. And I hope you can see the design in there. That's kind of a random piece.
And is that level with the bottom, or does it have a little bead rise, or what's the profile there?
It's quite level. I was able to sand it down. I put a ridge on the epoxy resin underneath to glue underneath on the underside, and there was a bubble in it, but this is the bottom.
Same piece? Goes right through? So does that sit, so you deliberately made a funnel in order to install that?
Yes, sir. I made a flat bottom and then cut the hole, and it worked.
Nice. And so the bottom piece looks bigger than what comes through here. So there's a ledge there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The ledge is underneath that's glued to the bottom.
Got it. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Questions for David?
You left a little bit of foot on there, didn't you, on the wooden bowl on the bottom?
Yeah, there. I see. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's nice.
Is the epoxy right against the bottom of the bowl, or is it a little foot there?
It's right against the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how did you do a lot of sanding on that spalted wood, or were you able to scrape it clean, or what did you do to get the wood to get a nice finish there?
No, I just turned it and sanded it down to 300 grit, and then I used Steve Sinner's finishing technique with the what's it called? The Helmsman from Minwax. And this doesn't shine up as much as other type of woods will, especially black walnut. This one has a couple coats of that on it.
I like the matte finish. I know that shiny sells, but it doesn't sell me. That's very nice wood. Nice, and that would be maple, I guess, eh? Or
yes.
Box elder, maple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question for David? Thank you for showing us that, David. I'm going to go to Chalikian and then John Wilson.
I wanted to talk about the upcoming symposium. I'm going to be a videographer. This will be my third year, and Ron Sheehan is, organizing all this, and he needs one more videographer, or we'd like one more. And I just wanted to let people know that it's a great experience. The design of the equipment that you're using is so simple to learn. In like 10 minutes, you're just cruising right along, and it's everything on the setup is very intuitive. And the thing that I like about being the videographer, you get to see exactly the view that you want to see. So if you want a close-up, you make it a close-up. So I wanted people just to encourage people, for one more person who's going to be attending in Lancaster in 2 weeks, to just contact Ron and let him know you'd like to try it out. It's a nifty experience. So
I've done it too. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Like I said, this will be my 3rd year. The other thing I have in talking about the coring systems and all, I've just gotten one. I've been struggling with it, and one of the things that I did, I got an email from the Woodturning Store. It was kind of perfect timing, and I purchased the Hurricane 125 chuck, and this is a 5-inch piece, and the jaw. I mean, it's a really nice system and very inexpensive. I bought. It comes with a standard, like it's a 2 1/4 jaws, and then the disc. And I also bought these step jaws, which is a really, let's see if you can kind of see it, nifty profile. Great for doing jars and cups and all that. It expands into it. Anyway, all of this, I mean, the jaws are like $45 a piece, which is really reasonable. My other chuck, my one and only chuck, has been a Vicmark, which I've been very happy with, but it's just the Vicmark 120 by itself is $320, and all of his three jaws that I have and the chuck itself was like $270.
And what's the brand again? Hurricane, and who sells it?
The Woodturning Store.
Okay.
And they're having a sale.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's a really nice unit, and it comes. Oh, and that also included the insert. So you just specify what size you have, and that's all included. You need an additional, or your first chuck. I think it's a deal that you can't beat.
Okay.
The only thing that I had a complaint with was the inscription of the jaw chuck number is faint. So, I mean, even on my Vicmark, I took a silver pen and I wrote on there so I could see it a whole lot easier. But it's a great system and very affordable.
Okay.
So the two things: volunteer as a videographer, great experience, and check out the. You need another chuck.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Thanks. John Wilson, are you still there, or did you go away?
No, I'm here.
Okay, you were next, and then Ken Vasko.
Appreciate it. I'd forgotten the topic at hand and can't remember my response, so apologies.
You mean you're done?
There it is. I forgot what I was going to say.
Vasko. You're muted, Ken.
Yep, there we go. Got it now?
Yep.
It says on my screen I'm still muted.
No, you're not. You're good.
Okay, I found this bowl. Let me share my screen here. It was online. Everybody see it there?
Now we got it?
Okay, good. And it was an online thing, and I'm like, it was like $2 or $3 or $4, something like that. And I looked at it, I go, that could be a really pretty piece. And so I decided to buy it. I figured this thing is kind of ugly. Maybe I'd have a chance of doing something with it. So, what I did is that I took the bowl and I put a foot on it and I turned it into this.
Much nicer.
If there had been a name on the bottom of the other one, on the original piece, I would have left it, I think. But because there was no name or date or identifying mark, I just decided I'd give this bowl a chance. So it came out pretty nice. I was pretty happy with it. It's about 7 inches, and it's about 2 3/8 inch deep, I think it is. So it's just a pretty piece. I tried to keep the size up. In this sapwood, there was a lot of little fractures, so I just took them out of it. Unfortunately, it took away his design, whoever did it before, but it came out kind of nice. So I was pretty happy with it.
What's your finish?
I have 2 different finishes on it. I tried putting tung oil on the inside, but I figured maybe there might be some fruit or something on it. And the outside is axe paste.
What? What is it?
Axe. ACKS.
Okay.
You ever hear of Axe?
No.
Oh, okay. He's a local guy. I think he's from Pottstown, somewhere up in Pennsylvania. But he makes some paste that's really nice. I really like it. I'll put a link to it in the.
What is it?
Discussion.
Is it a varnish or a wax? What is it?
No, it's a wax. It's a. Of course, it's proprietary, but it's food safe, and I think it's just some wax and some linseed oil things.
Huh.
But it's a real nice. It's real nice. Not real shiny. It's kind of a dull finish, but it comes out real nice.
The finish,
easy to apply.
the wax finish on the back. The way you describe it makes me think it's like homemade Osmo.
No, this wasn't.
Yeah, nice. Anyway, nice looking piece indeed. And the chat, there's some nice comments in the chat, basically agreeing that it's much improved.
Well, I was a little bit leery about buying that piece and turning somebody else's work into something else, but when I got it and there was no name, I said, well, all bets are off. That's all I got.
Okay. Okay, now Wilson's back with a comment about that final cut. You want to have the screen, John? Tell us what you were saying.
I'll be brief.
It's okay. We're 10 minutes in here, and Don will come on after you. So go ahead. Tell us all about it.
I don't want to be insulting. The only answer, or one of the many answers, one of the solutions that I found is let the tool rest. The tool creates heat when you're using it, and invariably you want to make the final cut, you make the cut. And the tip of the tool can get hot, especially with doing a final cut. Go back to a sharpen, let the tool rest and cool down. It's my opinion that it's the bevel, not a secondary bevel on the tool, that creates the bruising. And then when you're adding heat to that, I think that can damage the wood as well underneath. You don't see it, you don't feel it, but you're taking a micro shading, you're adding a heated element that's cutting it. I think that bruises it. That's my opinion. That's really all I had. So.
I think you might be right. That's very interesting. I'm going to do some experiments with that. It's in line with the standard advice from the really good turners too. Before you make that final cut, sharpen up. Don't imagine that your tool that you sharpened a little while ago is still sharp, and it isn't. Yeah.
Right, and that secondary bevel, instead of just resting and running on the heel and ride the bevel, I get it. But at the same time, it's a rotation thing on the handle. Rotate to get off the bevel, the heel of the bevel. But with a new tool, a cool tool, a less temperature, hot tool, and then go. And then it's literally, well, I don't know, maybe it isn't. I'm trying to say this without being offending. A start to finish cut, body position and feet work where you're going to end, go from where you're going to end and comfortable to uncomfortable, cut from start to finish, go.
Say that again. Park your feet at the end where you're going to end up.
Yeah, park your feet where the end of the cut's going to end.
Yep.
So that's the finish, and then
swing to it. Yep.
To start the cut, and then you finish.
Swing or sway through it. And you're talking about with the gouge or with the scraper?
With a gouge. With a gouge. The scraper, I don't have enough experience with the scraper, and I think negative rake was what you were looking for before. But
well, we're just trying to answer just chewing around the topic.
Yeah, I don't have any of the negative rakes. I have the single bevels, and it's a handle high thing. It's got to be less than 90 degrees. But,
and so the gouge you're using on that is like a Ellsworth style gouge, swept back gouge. Yeah. Not a detail gouge, not a spindle gouge.
No. Either a V or a U-shaped gouge.
Yeah. Okay.
Jonathan, we've been training a lot of people to do bowls lately, and whenever we were training, I did notice there's a lot of heat in the tip of that. Whenever, especially new turners, they really got a lot of heat up there on top. So I think we may be onto something.
Part of it is they're new, and maybe they're not new, but we hammer down or we lean in, or they get the handle up, and the cutting tip goes down, right? And then they're riding the bevel. On dry wood, I mean, I know I cut a lot of maple here, that can generate heat in a heartbeat. Take your time, get it off, go to sharpen, let it rest and cool off, and then make your final cut. I don't want to create the impression that I don't get those same bruising marks as well. I do. But I find that it's much reduced when I sharpen, let it cool down, and then one cut, start to finish.
I think your comment about where to put the feet is important. I'm ever more realizing that good turning begins with where you're standing and how your ankles are moving.
So the other rebuttal I have for Ken, the new turners, right, you're going to do it in stages, right? They're going to start at the rim, get your rim. You don't want them cutting down to super thin and then trying to cut out the rim that's super thin and vibrating all over the place. You're going to do it in stages. So the rim, the edge, the middle, and then the base. Fine, I get it. That's the state way we all learn to some extent. But before they get to the final cut, have them start thinking about a final cut. Sharpen, go from where they want to end, and then coil to uncomfortable, and then make that final cut. But it applies to the new, I mean, it applies to all of us, but the new, there it is.
You made a point, John, that I think is really important, but maybe glossed over, and that is that you can't get rid of chatter by pushing the tool harder.
Right.
Vibration.
You're only going to make it worse.
How do you hold it? It's almost like holding a dental drill or something. You've got to make it very fine and let the tool do the cutting, and don't push it. And because all that pushing is another thing that creates heat in your process as well. So, you know, anything you do, let the tool cut, and if it's not cutting, sharpen it.
Well, another thing that Darlow says that plays into that is, I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the laughing women downstairs in my house. He says go slow. Slow down. Stop making the cut fast.
I'll be the first to admit that I'm not very patient, and that is an absolute, a very, very good point, because if you do slow it down and then rotate that bevel, that you rotate the handle to change the bevel riding angle, that can increase the heat. And it's not a lean in, it's a turn, whatever way you're doing. Just my opinion. I don't want to.
No, I think you're right. And
these look great, and Bruce, I like it a lot. I don't want to be negative. It's awesome. I haven't done anything like that. So
this discussion is out there in general. It's not about Bruce's piece anymore. This is in general, because we all have the same issue with how do you get that, how do you stop bruising the wood in there? And you've got some really good points. Yeah, I've always felt that with every cut there is a perfect cut there somewhere. There's a way that you can accomplish that cut, and it'll be a perfect clean cut. You just don't know what it is.
You're connected with my professional background. When you're shooting with a camera, you always want to be comfortable in the ending position. So you whip out, just like you're saying, John, you whip out of uncomfortable to start the shot, and come around to comfort, and it's steady and you end well. So.
Right, and it tracks back to Ken's new turners. They stand at the lathe, they say, okay, well, we're going to start here, and they're comfortable. And then they finish uncomfortable, and it goes all to hell in a handbasket. So, and I am a recipient of hell in a handbasket in the same way. So
there you are.
If you think about it and position it, it can end better. Leave it that.
That's a great bunch of tips, and we got 5 minutes. I'm going to give it to Don Smith. What do you got, Don?
Well, I've made 3 pens this morning, and one of them I made out of this wood.
What is it?
Well, written on the piece of wood, it's got YAQI.
Wow.
Looks like
No
palm.
idea what that wood is.
It looks like
palm.
Mike says it looks like palm. I think he's probably right.
Yeah, it's just as I say, I don't know if you can see that, but it does say YAQI.
Yeah. How does it turn? Ah. So those black streaks are not open pores, or are they?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
It's just, I just don't know. It's a strange setup of wood. That's the cross section of it, and then you can see.
Don, you're pretty sure it's not what they call compressed wood? I saw recently that's getting to be rage. They compress wood.
Doesn't look like that to me.
No, it is solid wood. It is solid wood, and that's what I made from that. And then I made a couple of others from some corium.
That's corian countertop material?
Yeah, corium.
How are you cutting that, and how are you finishing that?
CORRIAN.
Yeah, we know what it is. How do you use regular tools to cut that, or something different?
A roughing gouge, spindle roughing gouge.
And then sand it, and how do you?
Sanded, and the finish, I use a French product called Facla, Farcla, which is a polishing compound, and that's all it is a polishing compound.
Haha.
And then one other, again, corium.
Wow, those are very nice. Now go back to the first one with the wood, the strange wood. And what's the finish on that?
That's been buffed, that one.
Questions for Don.
And then the brown compost, the compound, the diamond white, canubi and beeswax, and then buffed off with a dry buff.
Huh. Nice.
Nice. But I only came on when I saw no hands go up, but but it was just that I've no idea what this wood is. Anybody finds it and lets me know. If you think it's what was it, palm?
Palm is our best guess. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's palm. Palm's got, I think, open pores.
Huh. Okay. So maybe it's Wakui.
Oh,
yeah.
Lucky.
We did a book one time that was translated 30,000 names of woods from 7 languages. It was like just an enormous dictionary of wood names from around the world. Linden published it. There's still copies. I have a copy here somewhere, but I haven't seen it in years. If anybody has that's often pretty useful. You find that the same wood has a lot of different regional as well as language names.
Yeah, I agree. The book I've got goes 2 or 3 different woods. You think you've got a piece of this, and when you look at it, it tells you it's that.
Do you have the Handbook of Hardwoods from Her Majesty's Printing Office?
I've got one, but I'm not certain what it is. It's put in the drawer at the moment.
Yeah.
But I'll have a look at that. I looked at one book and it's not in there, but I'll have a look at it. If I find it, I'll let you know.
There's also a 2-volume set from the Wood Collector Society of Woods of the World that's lists about 500 woods. It's very, very interesting. I've got some books like that. I'll look and see if I can find something like that as well.
Yeah. But it's just interesting to know what it is.
Yeah.
John, I've got a website. It's called hobbithousinc.com, and it's got pictures of over 500 woods and the species on it, so you don't have to buy a book about it. It's,
Okay, well, what does it say about WAQI?
that's what I'm looking up. So it doesn't have any WAQI at all.
There you go.
As a wood, but there's pictures that you might be able to compare the surface to. So I'm not sure.
Okay, say again.
That's why I'm going.
Say again what the name of that is.
HobbitHouseinc.com.
Okay. Everybody got that? All right. We're done for the day. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11:01. We'll see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Keep be in touch.
Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, there we go.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.